for patterns, tricks, stitches and tips, wands and needles, embroidery.
In this video, I am going to be showing you how to create the tutu for my ballerina embroidery pattern. For this step, you're going to need just a few supplies. You're going to need a pair of scissors, some straight pins, and then you're going to need about a 16-inch length of a 6-inch wide tool and some corresponding embroidery floss. You want to pick a floss that is going to match your tool so that when you stitch this onto your hoop, the thread is going to just kind of disappear. You're not going to see your stitches that are attaching your tutu to the hoop. So you want something that's going to coordinate well with that and just kind of hide away. So I am actually using 3 strands of DMC 3859, which is the same color that we're using for the bodice if you're following the color recommendations in the stitch guide. So we're going to start with the tool. We're going to fold that length of tool in half once lengthwise, and then we're going to fold it in half 2 times along its width. Sometimes the tool likes to stick to itself a little bit, can be a little bit fussy. And just take your time and get that lined up, and you'll see you'll just have a thin strip of tool. Now, I find that this tends to shift around a lot when I'm trying to stitch on it. So what I like to do is just make sure everything is lined up, and then I take my straight pins and just secure everything in place along that top folded edge. And that's just going to make sure that all your layers stay in place as you're stitching, so that your thread is going through each of the layers. Nice and in place there. So then I'm going to take my thread and I'm just going to run along the top edge with a simple running stitch. And I like to do that by just kind of weaving my needle up and down through that tool. Your stitches don't have to be perfect here. Try to keep it lined up somewhat parallel with that top edge, but you don't really need to worry about making your stitches perfectly even, because this is all going to be gathered up at the end. You're not going to see any of these stitches. And as I go, I'm going to remove those straight pins as I get past that point. That'll just make it a little easier to work with. See, I'm just creating that stitch line parallel to that top edge, fairly close. I'd say I'm about 1/4 inch or so from that top edge. So I've reached the end of my tool. Now, one thing I like to do before I gather anything up is I just kind of double check my edges. And I can take my scissors and just go ahead and trim anything that's kind of sticking out, just to kind of clean up the edges of my tool before I gather it up. And then I'm just going to simply pull that string to gather up the tool. And on this end, I'm going to tuck that end underneath. And that way all the raw edges are kind of tucked away. I won't really see those very much. Then I'm just going to keep my tension on there so that that stays gathered up. And I'm going to go ahead and knot off my thread to secure everything in place. Once I've done that, then go ahead and trim that. And my tutu is ready to attach to my ballerina.